There we go. Okay, so welcome. For those of you who have not met me, my name is Joseph Onesta, and I'm a clinical hypnotist in the city of Pittsburgh. A little bit about myself before I begin, just so that you know I'm not talking off the cuff here. About 4 years ago, my A1c was through the roof. I had been diabetic since 2004. And it caused me to look for alternatives, and I found them. And I began doing them, and in a matter of weeks, I was off my medications because they were causing low blood sugar. So if you do what I tell you to do, it's going to help you. To what extent, I can't say. But what I can say is that my A1c from that very time has been in the normal range ever since, without medications. So in these days, while people are struggling to pay for their medications, the medications themselves, like Ozempic, are hard to get because, people in Hollywood want to lose weight. And you know what, and the alternatives cost $1,000 a month. This is incredible. And people rationing their insulin, and it's like there is something we can do, and I'm going to share that with you. There are 7 keys, and I'll ask you to bear with me for these 7 keys. And if you have any questions along the way, do just ask. I'll try to answer them. If I think I'm going to answer it later, and I'll just tell you, I'll say, oh, that's coming up soon, okay? But I promise not to be mean about it. But I do want to answer questions, because if you have them, I'm here for you. And so the first thing is that we need, welcome, Michael. I can't see you, but that's okay. And there's Michael, welcome. We are being recorded. The first step, the first key, is to understand the process your body followed to get right where we are. And so if you're diabetic, or someone you know is diabetic, because I imagine some people are here for that, we have to understand the very basic science that happens that causes type 2 diabetes. Doctors will tell you, and to a certain degree, I suppose there is a genetic disposition. And if that's true, about 90% of the people in our country have it. It would be more the case that people who don't have the genetic disposition are the abnormal ones, or the irregular ones. So statistically, about 80 to 90% of our country has a condition called hyperinsulinemia. Now, hyperinsulinemia means that your pancreas is working overtime to compensate for the amount of glucose in your blood. That's what it means. So your pancreas is working harder and harder and harder. Every time we consume something that raises our blood sugar, more insulin. And the thing about insulin, hyperinsulinemia, is that it breeds a thing called insulin resistance. The more insulin we have chronically in our blood, the more resistant the cells, because they're full of glucose already. We have plenty. The job of insulin, by the way, is like the traffic cop for glucose. When we consume extra glucose and our cells are full, there's really only one place for it to go. And it has to go. It has to get out of the bloodstream. That's why diabetes is dangerous. So the only place for it to go really is the liver. The liver will convert some of it into glycogen. That glycogen then, when the stores are full, then everything else gets converted into fat, which is why some doctors will say or hint or suggest that obesity causes diabetes. Obesity and diabetes are often comorbid. They often occur together, but not always. And that one does not predicate the other. You can be one without the other. I have clients weight loss clients who are 400 pounds who aren't diabetic. And we do know that they're overeating their carbohydrates, the glucose, but we don't know. And I will say this to you, by the way, most people in my office who are obese don't overeat at all. They undereat. Okay. So genetics aside, what happens is we've had a diet, a prescribed diet of upwards of 60% of our calories coming from complex carbohydrates. This is what the dietitian told me, the nutritionist, when I was diagnosed in 2004. And I just had a client the other day tell me that she got the same message when she was recently diagnosed. She got exactly the same message. And the dietitian or the nutritionist showed her a whole bunch of processed food and said, you could eat all of these. And she found that astonishing. So now that hyperinsulinemia, by the way, this chronic elevated levels of insulin because of chronic elevated blood sugar levels, and your pancreas has been doing a great job so far, by the way, decades prior to a diagnosis of prediabetes or diabetes. So this is a long time building. We don't have to be terribly scientific. We just have to understand the simple principles. So the main goal, number 2, this is the second key, stop digging deeper holes. No, nobody likes to hear this. Nobody wants to hear that reducing the amount of glucose in our blood is something that we have to do consciously and that it involves changing our diet. But I need you to believe me when I say 60% of your calories from complex carbohydrates is absurd. And I'm not giving you medical advice, but it's absurd. Because even complex carbohydrates are absorbed into the blood very quickly because they're processed. So if you eat whole grain bread, it's highly processed. It's not like you're eating a sheaf of wheat. You're eating everything that's in the sheaf of wheat, but it's ground up and processed. Your blood takes it on and it turns it right into glucose. And that's blood sugar. So what we need to think about is what kinds of food are spiking our blood the most notably carbohydrates, that's grains, starchy vegetables that grow underground, and the things that come from these things. So bread, for example, pasta. And I grew up in an Italian family. I'm not gonna lie to you. The thought of giving up pasta was absurd to me. It was crazy. It was nuts. Although I will tell you, in the process of doing what I did, and it's this, cutting down the carbohydrates, pasta began to mean less to me. And I began to find alternatives that were quite healthy. And, it depends on what a person's particular carb weakness is. A lot of people already know about sugar. And they think if I just use Splenda, and I don't mean to malign Splenda, any artificial sweetener, but my clients all say Splenda. Hats off to the marketers of Splenda. If I just use an artificial sweetener, I don't have any of the calories, and that's not a problem. But it is. And let me tell you why it is. Remember, the problem, the insulin resistance, it has like a chicken and egg relationship with insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia. The more insulin we have in our blood, because we have the carbohydrates, the more insulin, the more resistant the cells become because there's too much insulin. The more resistant the cells become, the more insulin we need to force it into the cells. So it's a chicken and egg, and it just keeps going. So the thing that we need to do, the number 2 key, is intentionally reduce our blood sugars through dietary changes. intentionally reduce our blood sugar through dietary changes. And what that means is reducing carbohydrates. And you have to become aware of what on your plate is a carbohydrate. You know, for example, some people believe that beans, legumes, are a protein. And it's true that they have protein. It's true. But they also come wrapped in a bunch of carbohydrates. So if you think you're getting protein from beans, you're also getting a truckload of carbohydrates. And so in my practice, and I'll tell you what I do, it's not a secret. We first of all look at what we're eating regularly, the real food that we're eating. And then we begin a process of gradually, underline the word gradually, reducing carbohydrates. And the gradually is because it's more sustainable. Your tastes actually change. So it's more sustainable that way. So it's gradual. The second part of the process that I'm working with my clients, we cut 50%. If you have 2 scoops of mashed potatoes on your plate, you go to 1. And we do that for a while. If you're eating a hamburger with the bottom and the top, get yourself a knife and fork and only eat the bottom bun. So it's cutting it in half. And what we're doing is we are teaching our taste buds, just like when we cut sugar. If you're using artificial sweeteners, they raise your insulin level. It's called the cephalic insulin response. Here's what happens. I taste sweet on my tongue. My tongue sends a message to my brain, expect sugar. My mind, intellectually, I know that I'm not eating sugar, but my brain doesn't understand that. My brain sends a message down to my gut, my stomach, my liver, and my pancreas, and says, hey, we got sugar coming. The liver stops gluconeogenesis, which is creating its glucose if it was doing that to begin with, but most of us don't have that issue off the top because of the amount of carbohydrates we're eating. And the stomach starts secreting juices. Say you're drinking a diet soda pop. And the pancreas starts excreting insulin in anticipation of the sugar. When there is no sugar that comes, the stomach, the liver, and the pancreas send a message to the brain, hey, what gives here? Where's that sugar you promised us? Oh, well, and all of a sudden the brain says, I don't know where it is. So you start craving things. One of the key sources of cravings. Oh, I want bread. I want chips. I'm looking for that jar of M&Ms. This is natural for this to happen. And it comes from artificial sweeteners. So if you're using artificial sweeteners, I'm going to say, congratulations for not consuming sugar. We're not even going to go into a lot of depth about sugar itself. But congratulations for not consuming sugar. But you need to cut those down. I don't care how much you're using. Cut them down gradually, just like your carbohydrates. Do the artificial sweeteners. So if you've got 2 packets of pink, yellow, or blue sugar in your coffee, whatever that is, bring it down to 1, get used to it, then bring it down to a half, get used to it, then bring it down to none. Okay? And nobody wants to do this. My own doctor, after 3 years with normal A1Cs and an insulin resistance test that said not only was I not insulin resistant, I was insulin sensitive. Finally, he looked at me and said, so what's hypnosis have to do with it? And the truth is, in general, nothing. You can do this without hypnosis. That's why I'm talking to you right now. What hypnosis does, and this is what I said to the doctor, Doc, nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to do what you have to do. And that's where the hypnosis comes in. And you know what? There's a lot of self-hypnosis free on YouTube. If you can't find a hypnotist where you are, There's free stuff on YouTube, and a lot of people work online if that's what you want. Okay, so we're going to stop digging a deeper hole. And we start that by just gradually reducing carbohydrates. Again, I underline gradually. If you are not able to afford your medications, you might want to be a little more dramatic about that. And you'll know if you're doing well by testing your blood. And we'll talk about that. That's one of the things. You got to do that. Because if you're taking medications and reducing your carbohydrates, like I was, I had low blood sugar twice. One time I was lucky to wake up. I mean, I was lucky. So, I mean, my blood sugar was in the pits. I had to eat something, you know. Anyway, the third actually key is to give your body time to heal. And I find that a lot of times when people have come to me because they're diabetic, they feel kind of betrayed by their body, like something went wrong and they were helpless about it. And sometimes they just don't trust their body to make the changes that they want to make, to heal over. But I want you to know your body, first of all, knows how to heal itself. That's its job. Number two, it wants to do it. Okay? So when we're giving the body time to heal, we're doing it in two ways. You've probably heard of intermittent fasting. Now, the way people understand intermittent fasting, I mean, you could read 100 different definitions. A lot of people think it just means skipping breakfast. If you skip breakfast every day, there's nothing intermittent about that. Intermittent fasting happens periodically. So we're going to start by increasing the time between our last bite one evening and our first bite, our first caloric intake the next morning. So let's say I go to bed at midnight after a snack, midnight, and I sleep until 8 o'clock in the morning. At 8:30, I'm having toast and coffee. My fast, my natural fast, because I was asleep most of the time, is 8.5 hours. Our goal is to gradually increase that time by either cutting off time the night before or extending time the day after, very gradually, again, gradually. And I'll explain why when we talk about averages. We do this gradually. And our goal is to get to between 16 and 18 hours. Now, a lot of people, I'll be honest with you, a lot of people who have to lose 10 or 15 pounds, when they get there, they're fine. They don't have diabetes. They just need to lose 10 or 15 pounds. Just doing that is often enough. But for those of us who have lived with diabetes for more than a decade or years and years, I don't know how many years, we've got to do a little bit more. And what we do after we get to that average, and we want an average, it doesn't have to be the same every day, but the average of 16 to 18 hours. And if you'd like, tomorrow you'll receive an email that's going to offer you an outline and all sorts of things. You can have these things, right? The average of 16 to 18 hours. Then we begin therapeutic, and I'm going to underline therapeutic intermittent fasting. And we fast not because we're reducing calories. I don't give a rat's patootie about calories. I don't care how many. I want you to eat calories. Calories are not what we're counting. It's not what we're looking at. I want you to eat enough food. On the other hand, if you're just eating one meal a day, for example, that's a reduced calorie diet. And if you do a reduced, it's called semi-starvation diet, by the way. If you do that, your body adjusts so that it burns less glucose, it burns less fuel your metabolism gets slower. These are language that people understand. Your metabolism gets slower. And so your body holds on to it. And why am I not losing weight? Why did I hit this plateau? Well, maybe what you were doing and maybe for how long you were doing it. When we do intermittent fasting, in my practice, it's 24 hours or more. That may scare you, but it's 24 hours or more. We do it only in order to allow the body to reverse the process that we started off with. So let's back up just a second. Remember, we're consuming too many carbohydrates, which raises our insulin, our blood glucose, and raises our insulin. All of that excess glucose has to go somewhere. It goes to the liver. The liver stores, some of it is glycogen, which is like petty cash. It's where your liver goes if your blood sugar drops naturally. It's like, oh, this isn't normal for me. And your body has an idea of what's normal blood sugar that doesn't necessarily agree with what your doctor says it should be. And that doesn't mean your body is right. It means your body is used to it. Okay? So all the excess glucose goes into the liver, it's converted into glycogen, and all the excess is converted into fat. When we do therapeutic intermittent fasting, and I'm underlining the word therapeutic, 24 hours or more, not on a regular basis, but on a sporadic basis. And there are patterns, and the favorite one of many of my clients is called, it's called, I'm not going to tell you. It's 36, 24, 36. And if you think of like the curves of a beautiful woman, forgive me for saying that, but that's where everybody's mind goes, 36, 24, 36. They do 3 in a row, 36 hours, they eat, 24 hours, they eat, 36 hours again. And that's once a week until they reach their goal. The other days, they eat their normal natural fast with their normal eating window. The eating window is the time that you're allowed to eat. So therapeutic intermittent fasting and the natural fast go together. But the therapeutic fasting, what it does is your body thinks this is not normal. Your body knows it's not normal. So it's not about burning calories. You won't eat as many calories if you're not eating. That's true. But it's not about not consuming calories. It's about allowing your blood glucose levels to begin to drop. And when they begin to drop, because you're not eating, when they begin to drop, your liver will start making glucose to keep those glucose levels level. If your body runs out of glycogen, and healthy people have somewhere around 12 to 14, maybe 12 to 14 hours of glycogen. So it's not like it takes a long time to use up glycogen. But in folks like us who have been large, have been diabetic for some period of time, things might take a little longer. Okay? So when the glycogen levels are depleted, the liver will say, well, we need more. Where's it going to go? Guess what? You have on your body a storage of energy called fat. So your liver then goes, oh my gosh, look, we've got this fat. And it starts to use fat. Now, granted, in daily life, your body's doing all of these things a lot of the time. But for people like us, the opportunity for our liver to actually lose fat, or to use fat, is rare. I mean, oh boy, your liver gets so happy. And if you have fatty liver, did you know the liver can regenerate? if you have fatty liver or even cirrhosis, especially non-alcoholic related cirrhosis, if you have alcohol related cirrhosis, alcohol and sugar are about the same thing. However, you can't keep drinking. Sorry. Remember that game with the little bell? Sorry. Okay. So that's why we're doing it. And the longer we do it, the more fat the body burns. But because the body thinks of it as an emergency or an aberration or something that is not normal, it's going, you come out of that and you want to eat. And a big mistake that people make is to overeat and to eat just what they want and to not plan what they're going to eat. They're reaching for chips. Oh, I did it. Well, if it was calories, that would work, but it isn't. It isn't calories. It's blood glucose. And so if what we do, fasting is a kind of aberration. It's a kind of not normal thing for us to do. Although evolutionarily, we always did that. Humans have always fasted because of the scarcity of food. Now we don't have that, right? Also consider that exercise, like when you go to the gym to work out 3 or 4 times a week, most people don't do it 3 or 4 times a week anyway, but they go and it's not a normal thing. And you hate it. By the way, you hate it. Talk about a release of cortisol, which tells your body to hold on to fat. You hate it. No, I don't know. Maybe you love it. I don't. I hate it. But you do an intense workout. What does your body do? You come out of the gym and the first thing, there it is, a smoothie bar. And they're telling you, oh, gosh, golly, gee willikers, have a smoothie. It's healthy. It has superfoods, also a truckload of sugar. Whether it comes from fruit juice, or added sugars, it's sugar. And your body just puts it right back on. In fact, if you do a longer fast and you want to weigh yourself, I can guarantee you that weight will come back fairly shortly, unless you know exactly how to break a fast. And that is eat the first meal, eat a small meal that consists mostly of protein and saturated fat, not canola oil, saturated fat. Go ahead with the butter, okay? Or have, better yet, bacon grease. And you're looking at me thinking, what is this crazy guy saying to me? Your body needs saturated fats to absorb vitamins A, E, D, and K. If you don't have saturated fat in your diet, you have trouble with vitamins A, E, D, and K. So have some. If it's in the form of fish oil, go for it. But you know, saturated fat, meat fat, eat meat. All right. So number 1, understand the process. Number 2, stop digging. Number 3, give the body time to heal. Number 4, the metabolic law of averages. And this is probably one of the most important elements in this process. We are not concerned about things that go up and down dramatically. We're concerned about where the average is. So the body will adjust to averages. It will reset its normal based on averages. It will cope with extremes. So when I go to the gym and I work out extra hard, my body is going to cope with those extremes by making me hungry, ravenous even, and possibly making me crave things. When I fast, the same thing might happen, which is why at the end of a fast, we plan what we're going to eat. And remember, the natural fast isn't necessarily much of a fast. It's like being normal, but we still plan what we're going to eat. We still plan it. And I'm going to give you a mind hack. If you want to be able to do this on your own, the best mind hack I know to be able to do this is when you finish your last bite of the day. If you're used to snacking, that's over. If it's your last bite of the day, it's your last bite of the day. But when you have your last bite of the day, you count how many hours to get to your goal. And you tell yourself, okay, I will eat sometime tomorrow after X o'clock. Not at, but after. I'll eat sometime tomorrow after 11. Which means when 11 o'clock rolls around, I'm not reaching for anything that's there. And if I've taken the time to plan, oh, you know what? I'm going to have bacon and eggs at 11. I'm going to have bacon and eggs at 11. Then I already have a plan. I can always change my mind. I can have a hamburger if I want it. But I can have, I have a plan. Every time I feel hunger, every time I feel a craving between that last bite and the first of the next day, I remind myself, yeah, it's okay. I'm going to eat after 11. And believe it or not, your body will listen to you. It may take some practice, but your body will listen to you. Okay? So now as diabetics, I want you to test your blood frequently. And there are a couple of tests that we like to do in the program, and I'm not marketing the program here, but the most important one is the blood glucose test right before your first bite of the day. That's the longest time that you've gone without eating. That's the closest thing we can come to a fasting glucose. I don't know about you, but I used to find 10-hour fasts when my doctor scheduled blood work. A 10-hour fast was like torture to me. You know, I would be at the lab when they opened the door, because the minute they took my blood, I'd be off to, some family style restaurant for breakfast, because I thought, oh, this is terrible. If I tell you the longest fast I've ever fasted, it'll scare you. Do you want to know? 5 days. 5 days. Right now, I'm at 60 hours, 4 days. And I'm going to go home and have soup. We have soup at home. But it's high protein and with fat. But I still do it periodically. And, you don't have to go that far. You just have to go far enough. But I will tell you, once you get used to it, you'll do it. I don't do it as often as I did when I was still letting my body heal. It doesn't have to be that way. And at the end, you get a little bit more leeway, a little more wiggle room, but you'll probably want to use it less than you imagine. Okay? So the metabolic law of averages, the average natural fast, because when you're done, some social occasion might mean that you have to eat, or it's, if you went to my mother's house for Thanksgiving and didn't eat, you were in trouble. So if it didn't fit your schedule, your fasting schedule, you might have to make an exception. When COVID ended, we were allowed to go and talk to each other again. My godmother, I'm 62, she's 20 years older than I am. She's in her 80s. I go to her house, a big bowl of pasta, Italian meatballs that are half bread, and a big chocolate cake. And in my mind, it's like, oh no, right? But she's my godmother. Did I eat that? Yes. Did I crave it after? No. That was amazing. I feared that. I ate a reasonable plate of pasta. Normally, I could eat a pound myself, by the way. I ate 2 meatballs because you can't just have one. She's Italian. She's going to put another one in your plate. Look at all these I made. You have to eat it. And a piece of chocolate cake. Oh my gosh. Talk about breaking the diet, huh? But the truth is, I went home, I tested my blood. Yes, there was a spike. Oh my gosh, what a spike. But I went right back. And everything came right back into order. Remember, your body knows how to heal and wants to do it. You may not trust it, but believe me, it does. I don't know, depending, there are lots of depending things. There are lots of variables here. You know, you could have damage to your pancreas. You could have kidney problems. You may have already nerve damage, or cardiovascular risk is increased. These all come from the dietary things, cancer. The thing is all of these mitigating circumstances, they're all tied, and they can all cause things to take longer or to, set limits. We'll never know until we figure it out. Okay. But the law of averages is we're going to average. So every day when we test our blood, right before that first bite, you write the number down. And over the week, 7 numbers, you add them up, divide by 7, and that's your average. Now, that is not useful for A1c. You know what A1c is, an average of 3 months. But because we're not doing before you eat and after you eat, pre and postprandial, we don't know where your blood is the other times, unless you're wearing that thing on your arm and your phone is going to tell you. So, you might be able to, there is actually a calculation. If you know what your average blood glucose is, you can actually calculate what your A1c would be. But it's a calculation. And I have that calculation. You can ask me for it. Not here. You can email me and ask me. It's online. That's where I got it. So the law of averages, we're only interested in averages. Remember, the body will adjust to averages. That's where the healing is. The body will only cope with extremes. So if I'm not going to eat carbs at all, ever, and you do that for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 3 months, you lose a bunch of weight, everything is amazing, and then you see a bag of chips and you're back to your old ways. I had a lady call me up. I did keto for 6 months and all the weight came back. And it's like, yeah, that's because you went back to what you were doing. It's not because what you did didn't work. It's because you went back to, she thought like a diet. Oh, once I lose the weight, I can eat whatever I want. And, I won't ask for a show of hands. But I don't know anybody who hasn't been on a diet who didn't think they could eat what they want when they were done. The thing is changing what you want to eat. That's what it comes down to. All right. So test your blood glucose frequently. That's number 5. We're doing well. Oh my gosh. We're going to have time for questions and answers, I think. Okay. So this one is a big one. Number 6 is a big one. Be ready to confront the things that you don't like. Now, I'm going to give you some simple, earthquake, but it was my knee hitting the table. I'm going to give you some things that you need to know. First of all, hunger rarely has anything to do with an empty stomach. I know you don't believe me right off the bat, but hunger rarely has anything to do with an empty stomach. All that hunger is something told your body to stimulate a hormone called ghrelin. And that that can be anything. It could be psychological. Every time I go to the airport, I walk past that pretzel store and Cinnabon, and the smells make me a little hungry. Oh, they smell so good, right? It could be smell. It could be as simple as your blood glucose is dropping below what your body thinks is your normal. I call that carbohydrate hunger. In fact, in those terms, when I experience hunger, when I'm doing a fast, that's a reward for me, because that tells me my blood glucose is coming down a bit. It may go back up because the liver, but it tells me it's coming down. So hunger becomes a reward to me. That may sound weird to you, right? Okay. Hunger can be nutritional. So for example, if you need some element of nutrition, if you're undernourished, and I'm going to tell you, quite frankly, most obese people are. I don't know, Deborah, you're a dietitian, you're a nutritionist. Would you say that many obese people are undernourished?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
overfed and undernourished.
Overfed and undernourished. Thank you, Deborah. See, I know her. She's a ringer in the room. Anyway, so if you're not getting proper nutrition, your body would, let's say, oh, you have a potassium, you don't have enough potassium. Your body won't crave a banana. It'll just make you hungry, hoping you'll eat one. I don't know how else to explain that. You're not an animal that is like that, running on instinct and, like a cow in a field, licking calcium or something. You are a human being. And that if you need potassium, your body will make you hungry, hoping you'll eat one. So you need to understand a little bit about nutrition and make sure you're okay. And, while I'm not really big on supplements, for some people that one a day is very necessary. Okay, and I'm not a big man on supplements. I'm not a big guy on processed anything. But supplements may be the answer, particularly if your diet is sort of pickish, like if you're picky. But, if you have a thyroid problem and you don't eat greens, you might need that iodized salt. Okay, because you need that for your thyroid, that iodine. I'm not a nutritionist. Deborah is, you could ask her. Okay, so, but we have to be ready to confront hunger for what it is. When I first did this, my partner would say to me, "You're starving yourself." And I would grab my 300-pound belly and I would say, "I could live through a famine. I'm not starving myself. You're right, I'm not eating, but I'm not eating purposely and intentionally so my body can do something. I will eat again." If you have fat on your body, hunger isn't because your stomach is empty. In fact, let me tell you something about hunger. When your stomach is empty, it goes away. I know it's hard to believe, but it goes away. I'm 4 days or 3 days into this. I haven't eaten since Monday. I don't feel hungry. Not at all. When I go home and I smell the soup and I know I'm going to eat it, oh, I'll bet I'm hungry. But you see, the hunger doesn't come from an empty stomach. My stomach's been empty for 3 days. It comes from my thinking about the soup. And I'm looking forward to it. If you think I'm staying here after 8 o'clock, forget it. I'm going home to eat my soup. All right. So hunger And hunger could be triggered. It can be nutritional. We have been trained to graze and eat mindlessly, eating constantly, snacking all the time. Your nutritionist told you to eat every 2 hours to keep your blood glucose levels. The wrong advice, the very wrong advice. For keeping your blood glucose levels and keeping you, attached to those medications, it was precisely the right thing to say. I'm not saying she was mean or that she was saying anything she didn't believe. I'm not accusing her of malfeasance. She wasn't a bad person. That's the standard advice. And it still is, at least according to the client I just talked to earlier today. All right. So we handle hunger by understanding where it's coming from. If it's my blood glucose dropping, great. That means my liver is going to kick into gluconeogenesis. I'm going to use some of that glycogen. And if I do it long enough, I'll burn a little fat. If it's nutritional, what am I missing? Have I only eaten, something stupid for the last 4 days? Did I only eat potato chips and dip? Okay. So then I might have, and carbohydrates when they drop make you hungry, but nutritional hunger, if I'm not well nourished, I'll feel hungry. My body will do that for me because it says you need to eat. But this idea of hunger headaches, I'm not so sure about that. I think it's the stress. I think when people don't eat, sometimes they don't eat because of stress, or when they can't eat, they're stressing themselves out. I think it's a tension headache, not a hunger headache. I don't get those headaches when I'm fasting for a long period of time. And I'm not suggesting that you go for 3 days. You would give up and it wouldn't work. All right. So let's go to cravings, because everybody loves cravings, don't we? Everybody loves them. Let me tell you something about cravings, my friends. Cravings are always a distraction. You yourself know, if you just think about it. I'm craving donuts. I need a donut. Have you ever heard someone say, I need a donut? Let me tell you something frankly and clearly. No one needs a donut. No one needs a donut. That's physically impossible to need a donut. You could use a donut if your blood glucose is down to 57 and you're scared. Eat a mouthful of a donut and it'll do that. But nobody needs a donut. You're craving a donut. Why? Oh, maybe I'm bored. Maybe I'm sad. Maybe I'm tense, stressed. Maybe I'm angry. Maybe I'm frustrated. These are things that we have. Maybe I'm feeling unloved. Maybe I'm lonely. All of these things have chemical reactions in the brain. And our brain helps us. Okay, so if I'm feeling lonely and unloved, I might, because of my mother, this beautiful Italian woman who always had pasta and there was everything, always wanted to feed me. I might actually crave pasta because I'm lonely. Now, of course, I know better. But back then, I need pasta. But what I needed was a hug from my mother. And since my mother's dead, I can't get it. So what do? The chemical for attachment is oxytocin. It's called oxytocin. Oxytocin comes from socialization and relationships with people. So if I'm lonely, go out. Even if it's to a coffee shop where I don't know anybody. Strike up a conversation. Call a friend. If I don't know anybody, call a friend. Let's go out. For heaven's sakes, go on Zoom and talk to somebody that you care about. That's oxytocin. If you're sad, depressed, That's dopamine. Laugh, even if it's a fake laugh. You know what? I find it so easy to laugh. Life is so silly. But laugh, watch comedy, lighten up, do something fun. You like to bowl, go bowling. You like to walk in the park, go walk in the park. If you're immobile and you have a mobility scooter, go out and terrorize people in the mall, scare them. At one of the last hypnosis conferences I had, somebody in a mobility scooter actually ran over somebody. And it was not funny, but it was hysterical. It wasn't funny, but it was funny. And I'm not suggesting you run over somebody, right? But play a little game, have fun. All right? That's dopamine. And then you won't need the chips. The last one I want to tell you about is called serotonin. Serotonin is the peaceful, tranquility, satisfied, comfort, calm brain chemical. You go to the doctor and you tell him you're depressed, and he gives you a prescription for something that helps you make more serotonin. But if you're depressed because life sucks, excuse my language, then what you need to do is change your attitude toward life, not get a little bit more serotonin because you're going to live with this. It may not be a chemical imbalance. So what do you do for serotonin? Feel safe. Find some place where you feel comfortable. Go for a walk, or sit in a park, or see something beautiful. Watch, some lovely movie. I mean, you know what? I think oxytocin is why rom-com movies are so popular with some people, because they're projecting watching these love stories. My mother loved them. She loved them. Okay, so if you're having a craving, it's not the donut that's going to fix it. You know yourself. You ate a donut, then maybe one donut turned into 6 because it didn't do the job. A few Doritos, not to malign the brand, but a few corn chips you thought would do it, and then the family-sized bag is gone. Oh, well, and now my stomach hurts. That happened to me once. I ate the whole bag. Listen, if you've led a life like me, judging is useless, because I've done it all. I've made every mistake you have and more. I've eaten a whole family-sized bag of Doritos. All right. This is getting in touch with who you are. So when you're having a craving, what's going on here? What's happening here? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? Oh, my spouse just pissed me off. And a handful of M&Ms is going to change that? Maybe you need to talk to your spouse. Maybe you need marriage counseling. I don't know. All right. Now we're getting to number 7, and we're running down to the wire. I want you to know that this is a long process. My clients sign up for a minimum of 10 sessions, and many of them renew to go another 10. Depends on where they are and how quickly they move through the program. Some of them rush right through it and they're golden and happy and delighted. Others, it's a much slower process. Everything is, but you need to know, and you need to be patient with yourself, and don't be discouraged. Don't give up. When you mess up, when you think you're going to have just 1 spoon of ice cream and you eat the half a gallon, okay, that wasn't what your intention was. But if you get angry and beat yourself up, that's not serving anybody. Take it and learn from it. Why? And not accusing why, but what was going on that I ate that? What was in my head? what was happening to me, and learn. And this is another place where if you know a hypnotist, we're pretty good at this stuff. How do we process through this? And most of this stuff, I'm going to be honest with you, most of it comes from when you were a kid. You've carried it with you when you were a kid, and for a period of time, you may have controlled it because you were grown up and you had to. And then in your vulnerable moments, you can't. Like binge eaters. Binge eaters often encounter a critical moment where they can't handle, and it could be completely in their head, but it could be something in life. And then they eat that whole family-sized bag of Doritos and hate themselves for it. So give yourself a break, take your time. Do this for you and for your life. Don't give up. Nobody really thinks they can do this until they do it. Nobody. So that's the last one. Don't give up. Be determined. I'm going to make you a promise. Tomorrow you're going to receive an email, and in that email is a link for a personal one-on-one. No heavy sales. That's not what I'm doing this for, okay? Don't think this. I say this because so many people do. This is 45 minutes with me one-on-one, talking about you and your diabetes and these 7 steps and how you can incorporate them in your life. We're going to create a strategy, a plan for you. You're perfectly welcome to do it on your own. Okay? I did it on my own. Of course, I'm a hypnotist and I had self-hypnosis. But, the thing is, if you want to do it on your own, do it. I celebrate you. Let me know how it's going. Send me an email. But there's a link for that. There is going to also be a link for the recording of this. So there were more people registered for this that weren't here. So it's going to be on YouTube. They can see it if they want to. I don't know if they will or if they won't. But that 45 minutes talk, and that link is only going to be good for a few days because I'm changing systems. I'm sorry. I'm changing systems. So that link is only going to work for like 3 or 4 days, and you have to schedule before the 15th of the month. That's when that system, that registration system goes out, right? I'm not renewing it. Too expensive. But that's free, absolutely free. I'm not going to sell you on anything. You decide what you want to do with that and how you want to do it. And if you think you can't do it on your own, then I can either help you find someone or we can work together online. But that's not why I'm here. I'd love you to do it on your own, quite frankly. I would be so proud of you if you did it on your own. And gosh, golly gee willikers. The rest of your life is what you got. Start living it and live it abundantly as best you can. And if you've been rationing your medications, I can promise you that doing this, particularly the cutting the carbs and extending the time between that natural fast, your blood glucose is going to respond eventually. It might not right away because your body thinks that a certain level is normal for you. But it will. It will. It's like adding a brand new medicine to the package. And I will tell you, when I'm working with my clients, I send them to their doctors and say, you tell your doctor what you're doing, and you advise your doctor that you're going to need to adjust your medications. I can't do it. I'm not a doctor. You tell your doctor and you get his advice or her advice. And just today, one of my clients called me up. She texted me, and she said, there's a book that I have that I give my clients when we work together. And she said, I gave my book to my endocrinologist. He's so impressed. And he wanted to know what I was doing. So I gave him the book. Can I buy another one from you? And it's like, I'll just give it, because I give it. I'll just give it to you, I told her. She wanted another book because she gave it to her endocrinologist. Come on. This works. And I feel a tie with every diabetic in the world. Every type 2. Type 1 is a little different. Okay, you know, they have pancreatic damage, you know, for sure. But this still would work for them. This would help them. This is the way they treated diabetes before they had exogenous or injectable insulin. This is how they did it. This isn't new. This is crazy. Why doesn't your doctor tell you to do this? This isn't new. Listen, I have to go because soup is wet. No, that's not why. But I do want to keep this to the time. You guys, thank you so much for attending. You will get the email tomorrow, okay? And it will point you in the direction of making that appointment. Please make it. And you know, you and I will have set 45 minutes to an hour, depending if I have somebody right after, 45 minutes to an hour to just talk about you and making a plan for you to do this in your life. Okay? Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you,
I
Joe.
Thank you,
appreciate you.
Joseph.
Have a wonderful day and or evening or whatever. And by the way, this is a green screen. This isn't my house.
Nice green
Anyway,
screen.
you guys are great. Okay? I'll see you
Thank
later.
you. Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
Bye-bye. I'm going to say a few words at the end here. So if you're watching this online, feel free to subscribe to the channel because in the near future, I'm going to be producing a lot of very short videos with mind hacks and hints and a little bit of education, very short, usually about a minute long. I'm going to post a lot of those and you can be in the loop. So please, if you're watching it on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. And that's it. Bye.